enamored of lobsters, as some of you might know, because I found out. This just blew me away when I found it out. Just exactly how much continuity there was in the neurochemistry of human beings and the neurochemistry of animals. It's absolutely staggering.
As I always do, without a plan. How cool are the Doors?
The band?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're great.
There's a rhythm to old music that you just can't get in anything that's produced today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I kind of tapped into it on the way over here. It's the first time I had regular radio on in probably about a year.
Oh, yeah.
For some reason, I turned it on last night and just to like tap into the world for a second,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it was I don't even think I listened to anything. I turned it on, maybe it was commercials. So when I went into the car this morning, I was like, "Oh, John DeBella's talking to me."
Yeah,
I remember that guy.
every morning.
Did you listen to him much?
Not as a kid, not really ever. But yeah, I mean, I scroll through radio pretty often while I'm driving around doing deliveries or just zipping the kids down at the bus stop or whatever. So sometimes we catch them in the morning.
Yeah, I haven't turned on anything terrestrial like that in a while.
Yeah.
Just been YouTubed out and kind of catching things purposely elsewhere. You know?
Yeah, it's funny to kind of give yourself up to the randomness of a radio broadcast every once in a while that's not directed at you or tailored for you or has ads that know anything about you. It's just the radio. They're going to play whatever even though, obviously they have a format and if you listen long enough, you'll hear the same songs over and over again. But it is nice to momentarily just tap into that. It's a little nostalgic in a way.
Well, I mean, listen, it was great. I got Robbie Krieger, I got the Doors, and I got tapped into that Jim Morrison kind of flow, man. And then not only the flow, not the Doors flow, but like, dude, Morrison went for it, dude. It's just like all those artists that, you know, obviously had a lot going on in them and kicked it early. Like, dude, when he's singing, it's just unreal. Mm-hmm. You know, it's all coming out. You just like hear, you can just like the emanation of just everything just pouring out his voice.
Yeah.
And they captured it in the studio.
Yeah.
I was listening to LA Woman studio recorded and Roadhouse Blues. And again, having done something that's nostalgic, like a couple years ago, that would have been nostalgic, right? I heard that song every couple months or whatever.
Yeah.
But, dude, how they captured that in the studio, like they actually captured raw stuff in the studio and everything's so tailored. The beats are so precise.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you think that's true? Like, is there a certain pace to that music where I felt like I slowed down a little bit, right? And you wouldn't expect to slow down listening to rock and roll, but
yeah, I can see what you mean. It's I don't know. It's not. I wouldn't say it's necessarily like the actual tempo. Maybe it's just more kind of the vibe is a little slower, a little more laid back.
Totally agree.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's more like kind of the Doors to me are always either cruising around in the summertime or camping in the fall when it's like just the end of the summer. You're just like hitting those last few moments of summer and starting to get into the fall and the air's starting to get a little crisp. So that's what I mean. I was hugely into them as a teenager. Would just listen to them all the time. Would devour Morrison poetry books, which now are kind of funny to look back on because a lot of it can get a little pretentious for sure. But I still love him, man, as a performer. The Doors are always like a polarizing band for like the people that I used to hang out with in the music world, because some of us really loved them, and then there were plenty of other people that were like, no, they're so cheesy. Are you fucking kidding me? The Doors
yeah.
The
Doors, it could actually be cheesy.
That a lot, yeah. At least in the music circles that I traveled in, a lot of people.
What was your music? I forget. Like, you told me this before, but didn't you like travel and perform and stuff? Like
a little bit, yeah. I've done some small tours around the East Coast in the U.S. and a little bit over in Europe too.
Beautiful thing.
But yeah, it's great times.
And you rolled with people who dissed the Doors. That's kind of
Yep.
I never thought they. Yeah. Anyway, they were always the epitome of cool for me. didn't even think they were around enough to diss.
Right.
You know, I know he got kind of cheesy with fur coats in the end.
Yeah.
And stuff.
I actually saw, I can't remember if it was my first year at Penn State or it may have been the year before I went there. But I saw, why am I spacing on the keyboard's name now? Ray Manzarek played, and Michael McClure, who was like a lesser known beat poet, performed together outdoors, Penn State, in the big amphitheater.
Nice.
And it was pretty amazing. They did some Doors songs, and then Michael McClure did some of his original beat style poetry over it, and it was really cool.
Wow.
Really cool.
Did it feel like a blast from the past?
Kind of. Yeah. I don't think enough people there really understood kind of what was going on there, that like this was a pretty amazing thing to experience.
Yeah.
Outdoors at Penn State.
Yeah.
But it was great. It was really great.
So what do you do day by day, Norman Fetter, besides make funny TikTok videos and farm your mushrooms?
Yeah.
Maybe you want to just explain that. Introduce yourself.
Laundry, dishes, vacuuming. I need a new vacuum.
Why am I talking to you anyway?
That's a good question, man. I don't know. Why are you?
I think your videos are fun. I think you're at least like, you're hanging out doing something interesting. So maybe just talk about like what you're doing.
Yeah, they're fun. It's a new thing for me. I mean, I'm pretty restless with my interests. I'm kind of always bopping around from things to other things. And I've always been interested in video. I've always been interested in comedy. Obviously, always been interested in music. And for some reason, I don't know, those three things just kind of came together a couple months ago, or maybe, I guess it's been almost a year.
So you had always had an interest in video, but you didn't really pick up video.
We would, back in the day, we would always have camcorders, taping each other's shows and stuff, or we'd ride around the city and make funny, artsy videos. And back when I was in college, like digital video editing was kind of just getting going, so we didn't do a whole bunch of it. We did a little bit of it, but you
got your hands in a little bit of digital video editing back in the day?
Oh man, I can remember. We would set a video to render at like midnight when we'd be done in the computer lab for it to be ready the next morning at like 9 or 10, finally done rendering with like maybe 2 or 3 effects or something on it. And so it was frustrating at that point. It was like it took so long to do anything. But as we now all have, video and music studios in our pockets, it's totally different.
Yeah, so I thought that was cool that you're doing most of your stuff on, I don't want to give away the trade secrets, but you said on an iPad.
Yeah, it's pretty minimal tech-wise.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of everything, is it's really at your fingertips. You don't need permission. It's kind of already with you.
Yep.
If you want to kind of get dirty and figure it out, tap around, mess up a few times.
Yeah.
Why do you have any reason why you're doing video content? Because I have a reason why I'm doing it. Why are you doing video content?
Why? This is a great question. I don't know. Maybe because I'm not married. Maybe because I think I have too much free time, which I don't at all. But I don't know. It's just kind of become that creative outlet for me. Like I've always needed something like that. Like I used to paint all the time. That's what I studied in college. I studied painting. Always played music. Still play music a lot, but the videos just became a thing where I could combine 3 different interests all into one thing, and became a little more dynamic. When you're working on a painting, or even if you're working on a song or an album, you're talking about a typically, long process, couple weeks to a couple months, if not a year or longer. I can have an idea for a video, and within 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes for some of the quicker ones, have something shot, edited, and posted, and be done, and like start getting some laughs
That's what it's about.
Which is great.
Yeah.
So, it's they're goofy, they're silly, but I like that they can actually elicit an emotional response from people, even if it's just a quick laugh or a giggle. That's cool. I like that.
Sounds like you're doing it because that's what people want nowadays, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't know. Buddy asked me in January, what I was doing for the new year, and I said video. He's like, well, what do you mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I had a feeling it was going to be podcasts and stuff like that, but I didn't know, right? It was all just kind of getting started, but it's obviously the way information is getting distributed. It's obviously of high value.
Yeah.
I don't even think I even put it together like that when I originally just was like, hey, I got to start doing video, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I think it's important. Like, I don't think a lot is going to look the same, even though, you got the radio, and I don't like the sound. I don't like to get too like dramatic, but I think it's really going to change the way people. It already has changed the way people consume information, right? So I think it's going to trickle down into things that aren't like pop culture, right? I think it's going to really influence how people. Once that's the source of your information, you can be that tailored with the information you can get. Then you can be that tailored with how you get everything, and that's how this whole digital economy works, right? Yeah. So you can really tap into different worlds, which is dangerous, right? Because you do want to get into that natural flow of Jim Morrison, Robbie Krieger, Ray Manzarek in a studio. No, we're not going to be in different booths. We're not doing this at a different time.
Yeah.
We're play with each other. There's going to be flaws. We're going to be out of, the metronomic rhythm here and there as we switch. But that's an important rhythm as opposed to the digital feed. Right. So I think I'm doing the video because I think it's a real big part of how people are going to consume things, but it can't be exclusive, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, it's a new frontier. I think you're just kind of figuring it out.
Yeah.
If you're not like a production studio scaling with thousands of viewers right now, you're like you or I, and there's still value in it because this is how people are going to have influence, right? Not exclusively, right? You still got to be in the world, but you are going to have digital replicas of you that are far-reaching and high quality and represent you. Yeah. Otherwise, again, we were talking about the two different games in elections, right? There's the in-person and there's the mail-in. You got to play both games. It's not just one election, right? It seems like you have to win this one, you have to win that one. You can't just take one for granted. And it's probably the same with this digital versus physical. And you got Facebook doing the Metaverse, so it's all coming quick, man. But it's like everything, moderation, right?
Yeah, I think there's, like anything, there's pros and cons too, right? So as everything becomes more and more tailored to what your interests are, that's in a way shutting you off to other opinions and other ideas, which is what everybody's talking about now as far as these algorithms go. And that's what you talk about. If you listen to some of these guys who are talking about, the dangers of social media, they'll basically talk about the algorithms and how there's nothing inherently horrible or dehumanizing or polarizing about social media as it is, but it's the algorithms that are steering people down specific paths, that are putting on blinders, and shutting you off to any possibility of a different idea coming in and making you sit back and say, never thought about it that way before. Maybe that's going to challenge my worldview about something here or there. So that I think is going to be the big challenge in the future, is how as our information intake becomes more and more streamlined and more tailored, how do we allow for those kind of magic times where something unforeseen happens and just makes you question something instead of just constantly being your ideas being reaffirmed and your worldview being reaffirmed over and over again, because that sounds incredibly boring and monotonous to me. I mean, I don't want to just be surrounded by people who agree with me, about people who see the world the same as me. That just sounds like a horrible existence. I'd rather be around people who are contrary, who have different ideas, who make me challenge my ideas, because that helps to strengthen my own beliefs. If I can hear an opposing view on something, be able to articulate why I disagree with that and why I agree with what I'm saying, that either is going to strengthen my conviction or it's going to make me change my mind, and I feel like a lot of that openness is getting lost as people are constantly just hearing what they agree with, instead of being challenged and even being willing to be challenged. Because it's one thing to just say, okay, I get most of my news from my Facebook feed or Twitter or whatever you're into. That's fine. But when people are actively making the choice to not engage with someone else, whether it's an actual human being or one specific section of TikTok or one specific section of Facebook, or whatever, when you're making that decision for yourself to not engage with people or things because you think they disagree with you or you think they think differently, that, I think, is troublesome. Because that is the algorithm creeping into people's actual brains. And so the algorithm doesn't matter anymore because it's already changed the way you're thinking. You're already doing now what the algorithm was set up to do without the algorithm. And that's fucking terrifying to me, to think that people will consciously shut themselves off from other human beings because they think differently.
I just had a whoa moment there. Like a literal whoa moment. Can you just say that again? No, what you literally just described was the first time I've been able to, in my mind, take that algorithm and put it into the real world and see it operating in formerly sentient human beings.
Yeah.
Well, sentient human beings, formerly, what's the word I'm looking for? Sovereign.
Yeah.
You're not sovereign at that point, right? Because you're on an algorithm. You're running a loop now, and you're living that algorithm. Yeah, I've always like the poison of the algorithm and this hive mind stuff is, it's not new. We've been talking about that for years, I think now. I think it's at least since the first since 2016. But that's the first time I was actually able to put it into the real world, because that's what we're seeing right now. I don't know if you are, but I'm seeing it, and I'm thinking that I'm being sensitive to it and getting out. Yeah. But then when you really kind of, wait, I haven't listened to the terrestrial radio, and I forced myself to, actually by accident, because last night it didn't happen, and I wouldn't have gone to it this morning if I didn't accidentally have the radio set to that. So basically, as soon as accidents started happening today, is when things started to chill out. Mm-hmm. Ain't that cool?
Yeah. And accidents are great. Mistakes are great.
Oops.
Yeah.
Oops, I listened to the Doors.
Right.
Oops. How are you, are you consciously battling this? That's great. I'm glad to hear you're tapping into the radio every day. I wish I had been now, or every once in a while.
I don't know if I've ever thought about it as a battle, per se.
Yeah. Your day-to-day deal with people face-to-face a lot?
No, it's not, actually.
No?
No.
You don't have to go sell mushrooms to people?
There's not a lot face-to-face. There's a lot on the phone. There's a lot of texting. There's a lot of calling.
People pick it.
Delivery days, yeah. I'm dealing with chefs and walking in vacations and stuff, which is great. But that was kind of a funny transition during the pandemic, for a lot of people to go virtual and be talking about missing these social connections and stuff. I have a little bit of both sides. I love being around people, even though I'm definitely a little bit of an introvert. But I was like, oh, this is not that much of an adjustment for me. I'm usually I see a couple people every week, mostly my kids and mushrooms. But yeah, that's definitely something that I make a conscious choice to do more of, because living out here in the woods, especially on the days that my kids are not here, there's a lot of alone time. There's a lot of introspective time. There's a lot of just me picking, a lot of meditative time, me picking mushrooms, packing mushrooms, walking around the woods.
What do you do while you're picking? What do you do while you're picking mushrooms?
Usually listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
Or music.
What type of podcasts?
Probably way too much politics.
Yeah.
But political podcasts. I love the one called The Fifth Column.
Okay.
Which is kind of a libertarian themed podcast.
Okay.
And Reason Magazine, which is a huge libertarian magazine.
Okay.
It's got a lot of good ones.
Okay.
But then I'll kind of I'll be able to tell when I've kind of had my fill of politics, and I'll just switch over and just listen to some ambient music, sounds of whales or something like that,
Nice.
Just the complete other end of the spectrum, non-cerebral whatsoever, just very slow, meditative, which is more like the music that I make. It's very abstract, ambient kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've been listening to lo-fi type instrumentals. That's kind of the passive music. I have this thing called Meaning Wave that I fell into, which is this guy takes podcasts and he puts them over lo-fi and other interesting tunes.
That's cool.
And it's not just a straight uncut podcast. He actually turns it into, choruses,
That's cool.
verses and bridges and, intros, outros. Really cool. But there's even too much of that, right? That's probably the thing I consume too much of. But yeah, there's a lot of passive time for me consuming. I think a lot of people are doing it. So how are you going out there? And you said that you're not necessarily conscious of it. So like, you're not, or maybe I missed you, right? So are you doing things to get out, like to mix it up with people?
Get out of the algorithm?
Because I'm concerned about this, right? Like, and some people don't feel concerned, and that's okay. I don't think it's natural to sit alone all day.
No,
it's really not. I mean, that's tantamount to not making mistakes. You can't, every time I get out and I mix it up with somebody else, something interesting, you just can't help it. You learn something, right? Yeah. So I've been very purposely getting out and doing those things. How are you?
Yeah, I probably need to do more of that, honestly. This is my 10th year being out here, 10th year running the farm. And I moved out here from Philadelphia, and it couldn't have been a much more different experience. I mean, when I was living in Philly, there were people all over the place. You could walk outside, you could walk down the block and get some food, stop in the coffee shop, see 10 people you knew, go to the corner bar, see 20 people you knew, go to a show that night. So it was really dynamic.
And were you in the Northern Liberties and stuff? Like, were you in that up and coming
area?
Fishtown?
Cool.
Cool. Yeah.
And we would have shows and parties at our place. So there were always musicians, always interesting people coming through. And then we gave that all up and moved out to the woods and started a mushroom farm. So for the past 10 years, I've been very much kind of head down, trying to make the farm work, trying to really take a hobby, something from a hobby level to an actual business that can sustain myself and my kids. And after a couple of years of doing it, I feel like now is kind of the time again to start to be more social, to get out into the world a little bit more, to be doing those things, to be interacting with more people. Because like I said, I have both sides to me. I could very easily get stuck in quotes, because it's only being stuck depending on how you view it. But I mean, I could nerd out in the barn for, multiple days designing, an air conditioning system or an air handling unit for the grow rooms, and just have no interest at all in seeing another human being or talking
eating, showering.
Yeah. But then at the same time, I love hanging out with my friends. I love going to a party. I love sitting around a campfire. I love talking to people. I love hearing what people are up to. So I kind of have both sides to me, and so it's the trick is just balancing those two for sure. Because I would say my natural inclination is more towards solitary, just like finding. I really enjoy working through a problem. And that might be part of my dad's engineer brain that found its way into my DNA.
Doesn't it suck being an artist with an engineer brain?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's actually kind of cool, but it's also torturous. I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Your dad gave you an engineer brain too?
Yeah, he was an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing guy.
Did you ever do anything engineer-wise besides the videos and the music? Like, did you ever get, did you ever have any interest in...
I mean...
Do you do your own, like, did you pick up on any of that?
I mean, in a more practical sense.
Yeah.
I mean, he taught me how to actually do wiring.
Cool. Yeah.
So, like, I do all the electrical. I did all the electrical up in the barn.
Yeah.
And building-wise. But, yeah. So, I guess it played out in more practical ways. Before I started the farm, too, like, I used to do construction. That's what I would do in the city.
Nice.
Working in restaurants.
So you went from construction, city, restaurants, into farming, and that was a huge step because you're going independent.
Yeah.
And wait, so what were you doing before? You were working in restaurants, and what? I just blank. What were you doing before?
Construction.
Yeah. That's
a little bit of
independent.
everything. Some carpentry.
Yeah. You're kind of independent there too, right?
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I would hook up. I had a couple guys every once in a while. We would hook up and do some gigs together, but
it wasn't like your own business that had to have some structure and some some.
If I wasn't going out and getting jobs, I wasn't working.
Yeah.
So that I learned a lot of good lessons there, and like I was telling somebody else recently, I mean, I was never really a great employee for anyone else. I've always had major issues with authority. I've always been pretty anti-authoritarian and I am a good worker for sure, but I would always clash with bosses, especially if I didn't perceive them as doing things the most efficient way or the best way, So at this point, I feel like I'm totally spoiled. Like, I don't know if the farm ever failed. I don't know what the hell I would do. I don't know how I could ever work for somebody else after this many
years. Farm's not gonna fail, man. People need mushrooms. I mean, has the COVID been good to the mushroom business? I don't know. I mean, maybe it's not because of the restaurants and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, it was horrible at the beginning. Our grow your own kits actually kind of sustained us for that year. I think naturally with people being home and looking for something interesting to do. And then on top of that, the amazingness of being able to grow your own food on your kitchen countertop. So our grow kits kind of took off, and because our restaurant sales kind of went to zero.
Right.
And I actually stopped growing fresh mushrooms for a couple months just because the overhead to keep the grow rooms up and running just wasn't worth it for virtually no sales. Because even the people that were still open or getting by with outdoor seating were not in the position to spend extra money for fancy mushrooms. So they were just trying to keep their employees paid, and get some decent food on the table. So, but since then it's been good. Although there is a weird mushroom shortage going on right now, partially because the big industrial farms can't find labor, and because a lot of them are getting supplies in from China, and the boats are stuck at ports. And they can't get their supplies. So the next couple of weeks to the next few months are going to be pretty interesting to see what happens with mushrooms. I have a feeling that a lot of prices, like a lot of other things, are going to spike. And I've already seen plenty of evidence that supply is really low. And even coming out of Kennett Square, 50 miles south of us, which is the mushroom capital of the world, they're having problems even getting mushrooms harvested. They can't find people to harvest them. So
we got to find somebody to get this clip cut up and onto social media so people far and wide can get the first-hand information from the mushroom farmer.
Mushroom breaking news right here.
That's great. No, that's very interesting to me. I'm like, that's super interesting. Because like there's this labor shortage, and I really struggle with people not wanting to work, or kind of, because, but it's real, right? In Poland, 3/4, I believe, fact check me.
Yeah.
Our 3/4 of workers are from the Ukraine. That's it's not because there's a shortage of actual Polish people to fill the jobs. It's a very social system. Lots of early retirees in their 50s.
Yeah.
All right. And it's not because they're wealthy, right? It's because they're on the dole.
Yeah.
And then you have people literally from the Ukraine, just slightly less well off, coming over to fill the jobs. So it's real, right? And I mean, it may be just beginning here, right? Because it's so hard to even think about people not having to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the not wanting to comes in, because I don't have to.
Right.
And if I don't have to get out of the metaverse, maybe I won't. All right. If I don't have to go to work, maybe I won't. So,
Yeah.
How can people keep themselves busy? Like, it's all about community, man. Like, people need to get out there and mix it up, because if they get out there and make mistakes, they'll get pulled into something good. Is that too optimistic, do you think?
No, I don't think so. I think it's great to think about it that way. I always struggle with the idea that you start to see more and more that, well, if nobody had to work, then we'd all be poets and artists and painters and musicians, and it's all because we're slaves to capitalism that we can't be our true creative selves. And it's like, it's kind of bullshit to me. There's going to be those people that are still artists and make things, but you're not going to instantly transform society into some utopian artist colony just because all of a sudden the government is paying people to not work. So, I don't know how deep you want to go down that rabbit hole, but I don't understand the inclination to not work. I just don't have that. It's hard for me to see that. I know some people have it and it seems to be natural, but I think a lot of people, and I think a lot of men especially, derive a lot of meaning out of their work. I think, especially if you're involved in deciding what it is that you're doing. I can understand being kind of anti-work if you're kind of thrust into a job that you don't love, that you don't want to be at, that feels like torture every day. You go, sure, I get that. I've been there before. But this idea that it's either that or staying home and getting a check in the mail from the government just seems absurd to me. It seems like the better solution is to search for something meaningful that's going to add something to your life, that's going to make you feel fulfilled. And not in a fantasy way that every day is going to be like, oh yes, I'm going to work. Like, I don't skip up the driveway to the barn and be like, I'm going to harvest mushrooms today. I love my life. No, nobody's going to be like that every freaking day, But it does feel meaningful, and I do still enjoy it even after 10 years of doing it. I do still look forward to it, and I derive some meaning through it. So, yeah, all of that just to say that I hope that people, I don't want to say hope, but my hope maybe would be that through this kind of great change that's going on right now, and people realizing that maybe they don't have to work a shitty job for horrible money, that more people do take the time to try to figure out something that is meaningful for them, instead of not working, because that to me seems like a recipe for eventual failure as a society and people as a whole.
Yeah, you have to find something meaningful. You're not going to do it in a vacuum. You're going to go out there and make mistakes, and it's not going to be by your agenda, probably, right? It's most people don't set out to do something and it's a straight line to do it, right? Like, you have an aspiration and you go out and do it. So you started to talk about like people and their motivation and maybe not having a lot because of what they're doing. Right, so they need to I think maybe the thing that I think I tried to purposely do is find meaning outside work, because that's where that's where people put a lot of their meaning. You know, I got to climb there, I got to show well there, I got to do all these things, like a lot of attention there, right? I got to dress up there, I got to keep my car, you know, for when I pull up in the parking lot, you know, a lot of energy, a terrible amount of energy. Where does it all go? If it wasn't purposefully put somewhere, it would go to the easiest place it would go, right? Like water would settle down to the bottom, right? And I think maybe, I don't know, if we're having trouble getting people to unload shipping containers, you know, we have a really big issue, not with people, but how we're motivating people. I don't think people are the problem. There's a lot of talent out there, and there's a lot of people that are you know, not above moving boxes and driving them around, but for some reason they're not stepping up, and it's because they don't have to, and they're settling. So you have to get out there and mix it up, because if you see somebody take a step from where you were settled to, you know, another level, and then maybe another level, you got to start questioning yourself. But you can't see that if in your metaverse or your situation where it's a silo, right? So I think it's huge. Otherwise, you get to a situation, I'm probably wrong, 3/4 is a lot, but maybe I'm not. It was ridiculous when I heard it, right? And some of the things I've seen, I love. Like, I don't trash the country or the people, but some of the things I've seen, they're crazy, you know. So I wouldn't be surprised, right? It's very different. So I try to bring that to people sometimes, right? With my experience, and I kind of feel like I'm putting on a show because I'm talking about something that's unique to me. But I think it's important for people to have that perspective. And I'm not even going to get into it now, right? Because I don't want to bore people. But maybe we don't get into it too much. But it's much different. And we never had that before. I mean, this shipping container thing, this labor shortage is frightening. More than an economic collapse, because when it's, you know, in here is collapsing, you know, that's the problem, because that's where all the building comes from. Money comes from stuff comes from people. So there, happy Wednesday, everybody. I don't know, man. It's a heavy topic. It's core to kind of why I'm doing this and why I'm doing the video, because it is my kind of, I think service is a way to kind of find some meaning, right? And part of how I got this thing going was serving people, right? Like, I had this aspiration to do a podcast, but like, what do I do, right? Like, actually, what do I do? I just started helping people, right? I saw some local friends that had businesses. It's just talk about their talents. That's cool, because they did something. Like, you'd be a perfect person for the talent show, right? How did you become a mushroom farmer, right? You went from, you know, maybe you were 1099 or you were working independent, but you were working for people. And then you decided, I'm able to control the whole thing, and I'm going to go ahead and do this. That's a special thing. So I started to showcase people. I did 12 of them. It's kind of service in that I was like, hey, I can help these people get their word out, and also a service to people like, hey, you can do it too, right? And then that spawned just meeting a couple people, and we started to get into these types of conversations where I was more comfortable talking about life, right? And finding people that were interested in talking about life. And we didn't come here with an agenda, like zero, right? Like, what was our plan?
Sit down and talk. That's the plan.
I don't know where any of this is going to go, right? Like, but it's got to breathe, right? So,
I feel like people are, for as much as we're talking about it, and I hope it doesn't sound too negative at all, but as far as people getting more and more pigeonholed and more comfortable and not even realizing that they're living in echo chambers, I still do think that people crave authentic conversations.
But they're not getting it. Even us, we're struggling to have an authentic conversation, right? You know, it's hard to sit down and just be with somebody.
Right. I mean, the technology makes it weird too. It's like if we were just...
I wish I had a producer.
You know?
I wish I had a producer. And maybe coming with a little bit of a topic would help too, right?
Maybe. But I think it's still, I'll sometimes just randomly pick up podcasts just to see what it's like for two people that I don't know anything about to just sit down and talk to each other. And sometimes I end up listening to the whole thing. Sometimes you listen to a couple minutes and you're like, yeah, these two don't really have chemistry or it's awkward or whatever, so I'll move on. But I still, every once in a while, you get the random surprise of like, oh wow, these two people are actually really interesting. I might dig in and research either one of them or both of them a little bit more and find out. But
sorry to disappoint everybody. It's not going to be here.
Yeah, this is not the one. Keep scrolling. But yeah, I like to think I'm not alone in that. I like to think there's still plenty of people out there who enjoy the randomness of like two people just talking.
And that's part of, that's part of why I'm doing this is because I want to be in that like I said, it's about being in both, right? Yeah. So that's what Jim Gleason is a guy that's appeared on the podcast many times, and that's what he said. These are here for somebody to pick up, and that's what it is. It's like, it's a digital forever currency, right? Like this is sitting there forever, right? I invested in the digital infrastructure so that I actually have a copy of it and multiple copies of it as well, not just Google, right? So it actually really is forever, as long as I can maintain it.
Right.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
Right? I don't think Google's throwing it away either, right? Like
probably not.
You know, this is it.
They're gonna mine whatever they can out of it.
Somebody's already copied it. No, seriously, it's craziness. So that's I think it's if you're isolated in your own little verse, called a verse, and you're not creating anything and you're just consuming. That's where the algorithm can completely take you over and become you, right?
Yeah.
If you're in a verse and you're creating and contributing, and you're stepping out of the verse and creating and contributing into the actual universe, the real verse.
Yeah.
We're making up terms on the fly here. I love it. That's innovation. Yeah, I mean, you have to be creating, right? That's another thing about it too. So the things in and of themselves aren't bad. You just need to be cognizant of how you're operating in them,
right,
and not come down to this lower thing. So no, what you were talking about, I don't think it was down. I think it's for real, right? I think what I said was down. I said people are going down to the lowest possible version of themselves, which is a pretty horrible thing to say, I guess.
Yeah.
Sorry, people, but I believe it's true. Not because I see a lot of them, but because we're having trouble getting mushrooms to restaurants or supplies to grow mushrooms, and everything else. Right? Buy your Christmas gifts in July because we're not going to be able to get them.
There's not going to be anything. Yeah.
So I don't think I'm making stuff up. Are we making stuff up?
I don't think so. No, I think you can go out. You can see that there are shortages on very real things. People see prices rising every day, and people go to the gas station. You see the prices on the gas pumps. Like, you look at your receipt after you're at the grocery store. You see the prices. It's real. It's happening, and I don't see it turning around anytime soon. I see it accelerating.
It does, and I think what the opportunity of technology offers is for more people to do what you did, right? The opportunities were more narrow when you had to deal with your local economy, and how do I, satisfy that?
Yeah.
But now that you do have an opportunity to operate in a verse, a metaverse, or multiple verses, a universe and a metaverse, you can hop into that metaverse, become digital, and you don't have to be a mushroom farmer. You could find a way to scrape $30,000 a week off the internet, right? Without doing anything but automating some stuff, right? Like, there's people that figured out a way to automate cute hamster videos to record them, cut them, render them, put them to YouTube, do it again.
Right.
I'm serious, right? They're getting views out the wazoo, and I hope that they're doing some good things with their time. They're making a ton of money. These people are out there.
Yeah. But are they
gaming the system?
Are they really contributing something valuable to society?
Well,
or are they just
valuable as a?
Did they just figure out a way to get rich and then?
Both, maybe, because valuable is a relative term, right?
Yeah.
Value maybe isn't always in one direction, right? In a positive direction. So with that caveat on it, probably both. You know,
I mean, making people happy and laugh, at cute hamster videos or kitten videos. I wasn't saying that as a judgment at all.
No.
Just purely as a question. Like,
No,
are they adding something, or what are they adding to society? I think it's something.
Well, a lot of there's a lot of, because that video does sit somewhere, so there's a lot of greenhouse effects from the the digital infrastructure holding that, right, or the infrastructure holding those digital assets, because there's a lot of them. But no, they do make kids happy. I'm like, what are you doing, kids? Why are you watching? You don't have to laugh in. Give them a couple minutes.
Right.
We'll have dinner on the table in a few.
Yeah.
So, what's a normal day of a mushroom farmer? Give me just a little bit more taste of mushrooms. Like, I don't know. How can I get into the life of a mushroom farmer? Because it fascinates me. You listen to podcasts. You pick mushrooms. You sell mushrooms. Mm-hmm. What's the exciting part? Like, maybe there isn't, right? Is there something that?
I mean, it's at this point, 10 years in, it is fairly formulaic. Yeah, I'd say. There aren't a lot of surprises. I mean, there are.
So is the exciting thing having the free time now? Is that the exciting thing?
Yeah. I guess I have some free time. It's minimal. Time management
autonomy
is huge. Autonomy is great. I really miss, honestly, like being in the midst, and I was kind of talking about this earlier, being in the midst of a project. Like when I was building and designing the whole barn and grow rooms and everything, like that was amazing and dynamic, and new things were happening every day and things were changing every day, and you had ideas and you were seeing the ideas realized in the world every day. So I missed that part of it. Like,
sounds like videos.
Yeah. And that might be part of why I gravitated towards that, is because that's a process too, and you can see things happen and you can see things change, and then you have kind of a product at the end.
You'd have to force that type of thing into the mushroom world now, because you got it set, you got everything built, you're going. Right.
Which is, there are new things, like we branched out and started doing some medicinal extracts last year.
Oh, really?
So that was figuring out a new process and figuring out how to, actually make those. And
so now, time out. You were figuring out a medicinal situation with mushrooms that you grow?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the medicinal aspects of them are fairly well known. I mean, a lot of them have been used in traditional Chinese medicine for thousands of years. We're kind of starting to catch up in the West a little bit to that
ashwagandha, lion's mane, things like that.
Reishi. I mean, even shiitake. Like shiitake has been an approved cancer treatment in Japan since 1985. So they'll actually doctors will prescribe shiitake alongside of chemo or radiation or other things to help mitigate because a lot of mushrooms have natural anti-tumor and antiviral properties.
What form do they give the shiitake?
Usually it'll be either in an extract, which is what we're doing, or capsules. It can be dried and powdered and put into capsules.
So let's go to your process. This is what I was looking for. So I set the stage. I want to know, you decide, right? Where did you decide? What did you do to get this started? This is pretty cool. Or was it already going? Like, were you always doing extracts?
No, I wasn't always doing them. I mean, I've always been aware of people doing them because it's not a new thing.
And why were you aware of them? Were they selling medicinal, like for medicinal purposes? For this,
and just through online message boards.
So you just saw it picking up. You saw it picking up.
Yeah,
and you knew it was for more than. It was for growers too, because the extract was you had the mushrooms, you had the ability to grow them, so you could, if you decided to, extract it. Okay.
And as a mushroom farmer specifically, like one of the things that I think all of us would always love to have is a shelf-stable product, right? Because mushrooms have a really limited shelf life. Yeah. I mean, matter of days to like a week or two. So it's a lot. We're constantly harvesting, selling, moving. So the idea of having something you can make and that could sit on a shelf and didn't have to be sold within a matter of days, I think is awesome. So, and all kinds of small farmers are always looking for what they call value-added products. So it's like, I already create this one thing. Can I extract something out And what we're doing is literally extracting something out because there are medicinal compounds inside the mushrooms, and we're extracting them out through a process and then creating basically a concentrated liquid that can be added to a smoothie, added to coffee, added to tea. Some people just take it straight on their tongue once or twice a day.
Sublingual for you.
Yes.
For the novices out there with extract medicine.
Yeah. So yeah, that's been exciting, and we've had.
Dude, that's super exciting.
We've had a lot of good response.
Yeah, there's going to be a local, because everybody's into this, right? We drink the mushroom coffee. I've been doing Lion's Mane on and off for about a couple of years now.
Yep.
I've seen the mushrooms picking up, right? So
they definitely seem to be having a moment now, for sure. They're getting out more into the popular consciousness, I think.
Yeah, so you got like a 2-year run with keto, right? So
yeah.
It's like, get out there.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting because I had a talk with another mushroom guy recently, and we both kind of came from this earlier kind of surge in mushroom interest, which was kind of like 2008 to 2012, 13, something like that. But we both have definitely noticed in the past year or two kind of a second wave happening where like not only mushrooms getting out more into the popular consciousness and people being more interested in cooking them and finding out about their medicinal properties, but also more people growing them, more small farms popping up, more people deciding to take that hobby to another level, just like we did years ago. So it's really, not to mention more clinical research going on with them too, medicinal wise, culinary wise. The first studies with psychedelic mushrooms happening at Johns Hopkins since the early 60s, so that's really exciting. So there's mushrooms as a whole definitely seem to be kind of having a moment right now, which is exciting to be part of for sure.
And I'm guessing maybe the digitalization of things gives way to
I think
getting these things out there.
I think information, just the speed that information travels at this point. You know? I mean, over the summer at the one farmer's market that I was doing, all of a sudden 1 week, everyone was asking for lion's mane, right? And that's a mushroom, that's a pretty obscure one that I've always been trying to push on people because I think it's great, it's interesting, it's weird, it's delicious, it's medicinal. And I started asking people, it was like, well, how do you know about this? And some people were like, oh, I just know, I read about it. And then somebody finally said, oh, there's this chef on TikTok, and she did a video with a recipe for lion's mane crab cakes. And so then I started to ask more people after that. I was like, what are you going to do with them? I'm like, oh, I'm thinking about trying this crab cake recipe. So here's one chef on TikTok who has, millions and millions of followers who put up one recipe for one mushroom, and it spread like crazy. And now I have people asking me for lion's mane, people who, just a couple months or a year ago would have had no idea that mushroom even existed. And they see a video and they're like, wow, that looks cool. I want to try that. I'm going to go to my farmer's market and see if there's a mushroom guy there. Oh, look, he has lion's mane. I'm going to buy it. So it's a cool kind of example about how all of these things can kind of work together in weird, unknown ways.
It's the verses merging, right? They were in their verse, their metaverse in a podcast or whatever, in their tailored experience. It was a good one. They got brought into the mushroom world and educated on the fineries of how you can use them to heal yourself. And then they went out into the universe. They met Norman.
Yeah.
They started talking about the other verse, the metaverse. And were you on TikTok before that?
I think that was around the time that I actually got started. Maybe a little bit before then. Yeah.
Yeah. Did it change your perspective on TikTok after that conversation? Just curious.
I think it did, actually. I mean, and it was an evolving thing for me because my ex-wife and I had to deal with our daughter getting involved in TikTok at a much too young of an age. And so I initially had like a pretty negative view of it as far as the things that it can do to a young child's psyche and self-image. And I still do for them. But I had no idea that so many different TikToks existed. I had no idea that there was a construction TikTok, that there was a political TikTok, that there was a mushroom TikTok, that there were culinary TikToks, that there are all these sections of TikTok that, depending on what your interests are, you can dive into. You know, so it wasn't. I started the farm account first, I guess, and there's only a couple vids on there for the farm, which probably says something about how good of a business person I am, that I would rather make funny little goofy political videos rather than make some videos that would drive some business to my farm. But
it all goes together.
I need to get better with that.
It all goes together.
But then after that, then started doing kind of the other ones. But it's strange, and part of me doesn't like it at all. I don't like that it's devolving our attention spans even more than they've already been devolved. But I like to try to keep an open mind that maybe there's a silver lining to that. Maybe that short attention span is valuable in certain ways, to be able to cut out a lot of chatter that's unnecessary, and maybe we're actually going to learn to be able to focus, almost like speed reading in a way, to be able to digest more media quickly and pick out the things that have value to us, and then maybe we'll still be able to process that, and then when we make the choice to dive in deeper and research something a little bit more, and like a long form conversation or like a longer video that explains something in depth, that we still have the capacity to do. I like to believe that we still have the capacity to do that. We're not going to lose it. So.
Well, it all comes back to video, right? The TikTok is a video platform, and they're capitalizing on what I kind of start the conversation with. Why are you doing videos? Why am I doing videos? They're real, and they do have influence. They can have a bad influence. I am not a fan of these TikTok videos that are forced in front of me, that no matter what I try to do, I can't get YouTube or Facebook to stop showing them to me. It's pretty upsetting. Because it is a bad thing for girls. It's horrible. But I mean, you can't stop these things, I guess, right? But that's awesome that there's people doing good things on there. I haven't made the venture over. Maybe I should. Maybe it's one of those things where I should. But there's so much out there.
Yeah.
I think I'm good.
It's like, do you really need one more thing to look at and check? And I don't know. Yeah.
Nah, I'm good.
It's probably good.
I gotta check in on the universe.
Yeah.
The universe is where it's at.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got to meet up in the universe. It started online.
Yeah, man. I guess it did. Yeah, we did originally meet each other just online, which I guess is the way most people meet each other nowadays.
It doesn't make it offline a lot.
Yeah.
And if it does, it might not ever make it into more than like a, hey, how are you?
Right.
I don't want to say these things that I saw. Maybe should I mention them? I don't know if I should bring them into the real world because I don't know you too well yet. Where do we relate? Because or is that just me?
No. I think you're right.
It's hard to bring it. It's hard to bring it to the real world, right? Yeah. It is. Really, I'm glad we did, dude.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me.
Wait, did we get that back? No, I had you. Wait. I had you, and then you had me. Wait. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Because I'm at your house, and you're on my show. Okay, I got you. Maybe next time to the barn, too. Like you said, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we could do a little barn tour.
Maybe even like a multiple people. Maybe even like get another mushroom guy in here. See, you guys are doing on like extracts or something like that.
Yeah. That's possible.
I'm sure you wouldn't mind selling them all across the country if people put in an order, right? So, no reason not to talk about it. Yeah, dude, this was fun. I really like coming down here.
Yeah. Awesome.
So, anything you want to do before you end it? Anything you want to say? Anything you want
to? Yeah, I just hope people. One thing I've always tried to do with my life is just stay open. I just hope we can all continue to stay open. So I feel like there's some closing off going on in minds and scenes and metaverses, and just try to stay open because the world is a big place, and accidents happen and mistakes happen, and they can completely change your life. So.
And you can make them happen. Norman, I don't mean to take the last word from you, but just some practical advice to follow up on that. When you see somebody and not a person that you know, a stranger, stop, take a deep breath, literally, stop, breathe, and then ask that person a question and actually listen, and then try to get wrapped up in their world for a second.
Mm-hmm.
See what happens. It's crazy. I've done it. You have to purposely tell yourself to do it. You'll stop lines at Giant because somebody will start talking to you and they forgot that they were working because all of a sudden somebody's actually paying attention to them.
Yeah, it's wild, man. There's a guy on TikTok who his whole thing is he goes up to random people on the street and says, "Excuse me, can I ask you a question?" And most people, the videos he posts, they say, "Sure. Are you happy?" They stop for a sec. Most people say yes. Why are you happy? And it's like, it'll be a 30, 60-second video, maybe, But just breaking into other people's worlds, and with generally a positive spin on it for other people. See, like, oh.
I did that very intentionally at the beginning of the year. I had a goal to make connection with 1 million people. I went on Facebook Live and I said, connection is important, like, January 6th just happened. Everybody's going crazy. I was like, connection. Go out there and connect.
Yeah. And
I did this for a couple of days. Literally stopped lines over at Quest Diagnostics. The lobby filled up because I heard all about, the phlebotomist. I don't want to give too many details, right? But I heard a lot of information that wasn't a part of your normal blood draw, right? And there's a lot of people waiting. So no, you can really easily get into somebody. People are dying to share themselves and just to, say almost thanks for asking and just let go, right? So, it's good, Norman. Get out there, be open-minded, and then go ahead and be brave to just put yourself out there and make a mistake because you know what else might happen? What are you doing, Smiley? Get out of here. They're good stuff, man. I really appreciate this. Cool. That was fun.
It's like what happens at the beginning of the story of Pinocchio is that Geppetto wishes on a star. So what Geppetto does is align himself with the metaphorical manifestation of the highest good he can conceptualize. He aims at the star. For him, the star is the possibility that he can take his creation, a puppet, whose strings are being pulled by unseen forces, and have it transform into something that's autonomous and real. Well, that's a hell of an ambition. And we're wise enough to put that in a children's movie, but too foolish to understand what it means. It's such an interesting juxtaposition that we can both know that and not know it at the same time. Go to the movie, you can watch it and it makes sense, but that doesn't mean that you can go home and think, well, I know what that meant. You can go to the movie, you can watch it and it makes sense, but that doesn't mean that you can go home and think, well, I know what that meant. You can go to the movie, you can watch it and it makes sense, but that doesn't mean that you can go home and think, well, I know what that meant. You can go to the movie, you can watch it and it makes sense, but that doesn't mean that you can go home and think, well, I know what that meant. Well, people are complicated, right? We exist at different levels, and all the levels don't communicate with one another. But the movie is a hypothesis, and the hypothesis is there's no better pathway to self-realization and the ennoblement of being than to posit the highest good that you can conceive of and commit yourself to it. You can go to the movie, you can watch it and it makes sense, but that doesn't mean that you can go home and think, well, I know what that meant. You can go to the movie, you can watch it and it makes sense, but that doesn't mean that you can go home and think, well, I know what that meant. You can go to the movie, you can watch it and it makes sense, but that doesn't mean that you can go home and think, well, I know what that meant. You can go to the movie, you can watch it and it makes sense, but that doesn't mean that you can go home and think, well, I know what that meant.
You can go to the movie, you can watch it and it makes sense, but that doesn't mean you can go home and think, well, I know what that meant. You can go to the movie, you can watch it and it makes sense, but that doesn't mean you can go home and think, well, I know what that meant.
no better pathway to self-realization and the ennoblement of being than to posit the highest good that you can conceive of and commit yourself to it.
I know what that meant. I know what that meant. I know what that meant.
And then you might also ask yourself, and this is definitely worth asking, is do you really have anything better to do? And if you don't, well, why would you do anything else?